Meet the Flintstones. They're the modern Stone Age family. You may have grown up loving the adventures of Fred, Wilma, Barney, and Betty, but how many of the things only adults notice in the Flintstones did you ever pick up on? The show was a pop culture sensation in the 60s when it first aired, and the franchise has spawned spin-offs, movies, merchandise, and more. With relatable characters and storylines, the show has entertained millions the world over. Every year, through reruns of the show's 6 seasons, a new generation of children meet the Flintstones for the first time. And just like when you were a kid, they fall in love with these funny and lovable characters. However, if you take a look back at the show through the eyes of an adult, you'll notice a lot of stuff you didn't pick up on when you were a kid. You'll find a world full of complex and often dark, problematic issues. In this video, we'll take a deep dive into some of the things you may have missed in the Flintstones when you were young. The Flintstones was based on the Honeymooners. If you're old enough to remember it, or you're a fan of 1950s television, you may have picked up on the fact that the Flintstones is remarkably similar to a popular comedy series called The Honeymooners. This early American sitcom ran from 1955 and featured a heavy-set lead character who was underemployed, lazy, loud, and boorish. Sound familiar? Fred Flintstone was clearly based on Ralph Kramden from The Honeymooners. But the similarities between the two shows didn't end there. The Honeymooners was another show tame enough for buttoned-up mid-century American TV, but it had similar adult undertones, making the show work on more than one level. Kramden drove a bus, while Flintstone drove a dinosaur in a quarry. Both men butt heads with their long-suffering wives, and both men are best of friends with the guy next door. Living next door to Fred was Barney Rubble, while Ralph's neighbor was a guy named Ed Norton. The two sounded exactly the same. Both shows see their lead couple threaten each other with physical violence. One of these days, Alice, boom, straight to the moon, Ralph would say.
Bang, soon! I'm going to the moon!
We'd also see Fred threaten Wilma in a similar way. And while we never saw Fred hit Wilma, we'd often see Wilma hit Fred if he did something she didn't like. The animals were the Mod Cons. One of the most amusing conventions of the Flintstones was that the animals and other Stone Age creatures all served a purpose to fulfill the many household tasks that modern appliances might do. For instance, the elephant with a trunk full of water was used as a garden hose, the rabbit's ears used as TV antenna, and a swordfish worked as a kitchen knife. Sometimes we'd see the animal breaking the fourth wall and talking directly to the audience, usually about the cruel nature of the work they're forced to do. Think of the alarm whistle in Fred's workplace, the bird who has its tail yanked. It would seem animal cruelty ran deep in the Flintstones. While kids may giggle at some of the most ingenious ways animals were used on the show, adults will possibly be left questioning the morality of a society that uses beasts of burden in this manner. The show tackled issues of infertility. Despite the fact there are aspects of the show which may seem like they belong in the Stone Age, there were progressive elements. It may seem normal for kids these days to see people talking about major life issues in shows, but back in the 60s, this was something revolutionary. One issue that the cartoon tackled was Barney and Betty Rubble's inability to naturally conceive a child like the Flintstones. In February 1963, Wilma gave birth to Pebbles on the show. After this, the Rubbles spent a lot of time around the new baby and really wanted one for themselves. Since they can't seem to have a child for themselves, they end up wishing on a falling star. The following day, their wish had seemingly been answered. They find that Bam Bam, a very strong baby, has been left on their door in a basket. Then the couple has to deal with all the complexity of having to legally adopt the child. The fact that it looks as though they won't get to keep the baby pushes the Rubbles to the brink, and Barney even tried to commit suicide only to be stopped by Fred. Does this sound like a kid's show? Hey, if you're enjoying this video so far, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to Factsverse, and stick around for more fun facts about the Flintstones. The Flintstones was littered with adult jokes. It featured adults in lead roles and was really designed for an adult audience. The plot lines also deal with adult problems, but the show was also full of dirty jokes. These went straight over the heads of the younger audience, and apparently the ABC censors too. There are some Stone Age puns about adult movies. While getting a checkup with the doctor holds up Fred's X-ray, prompting Flintstone to say, "How about it, Doc? Flintstone in an X-rated picture." In one episode, Fred and Barney pay a store. Fred asks Barney if he wants a costume with another head. Barney asks him what he needs with 3 heads, implying he has a second head between his legs.
Another one? What do I need 3 of them for?
This isn't the only time Barney alludes to his genitals. Barney's watching TV in one episode when Fred asks him how his antenna is. Barney replies, "Fine, friend. How's yours?" The humor rocks. The Flintstones was full of rock-solid puns. Every aspect of the world and every person has a Stone Age pun as their name. Some of the puns work better than others. For example, Wilma would take a trip to Rockapulco, while Fred worked for Mr. Slate. There were also send-ups of popular celebrities of the day, including Rockpile Hudstone, a play on Rock Hudson, and Jackie Kennerock, a riff on Jackie Kennedy. Kids these days probably have no idea who half these people are, but at the time, the Flintstones celebrated Christmas before the birth of Christ. One of the basic tenets of the show is that the Flintstones live a modern Stone Age life. They have animals doing the jobs of many appliances, however, they still have TV, movies, radio, and fast food. This could make adults raise a few eyebrows. One out there fan theory suggests they're not living in the past, but living in the distant future. An apocalypse has destroyed life as we know it, and the world is in a new Stone Age. This leaves the surviving humans to recreate the world that they remember using whatever is available now. This explains how the Flintstones can celebrate Christmas even though the Stone Age came a long time before the birth of Jesus. Dino and Juliet. Like many of the classic sitcoms of the 60s, the Flintstones was not serialized. This meant every episode stood on its own. Whatever situation Fred, Wilma, Barney, and Betty found themselves in, the resolution would always see them back to square one. Kids can easily get on board with this. Adults, on the other hand, are well-versed in the way that relationships and life work. They expect to see how life develops for the protagonists of the show. For example, they may want to know what happens after the events of the episode Dino and Juliet. In this pastiche of the classic Shakespeare play Romeo and Juliet, Fred falls out with a new neighbor and enters into a heated feud, just like the Montagues and Capulets. However, instead of their teenage children falling in love, their pet dinosaurs do. Dino instantly falls head over tail for Juliet, a dinosaur that looks a lot like Dino, only smaller. Dino and Juliet sneak off together and do what dinosaurs who love each other very much do. And this results in lots of baby dinosaurs being born. But once the episode ends, we never see Juliet or the babies again. Is Dino an absentee father? Do kids not wonder where baby dinosaurs come from? And what kids know the plot lines of Shakespeare plays anyway? So, what do you think of the Flintstones? Was it written for adults or purely a kids show? Let us know in the comments section below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to Facts Verse if you haven't already. Click the bell icon to stay updated on all our latest content.